Stay calm. I'm taking you off the manifest. You're coming with me.
Where? To what purpose?
The smell hit first, scorched metal and something sweeter underneath, like copper left too long in the rain. Station Cathras 9 didn't have a name anyone respected. The dockhands just called it the Rust Bowl, and the fighting pit at its center was the only part of the station that ever felt alive. Cages lined the back wall. Most held nothing worth watching. One held something that made grown mercenaries go quiet. She was curled against the bars, knees to her chest, silver-white eyes catching the pit's floodlights like a cat caught in headlights. Her skin had a faint iridescent sheen, like oil on water, and where the guards had cut her hair too short, you could see the faint ridges running down the back of her skull. Not human, not even close, though close enough to make the crowd uneasy, in a way pure monsters never did. Lot 41, the auctioneer barked, voice crackling through a speaker that had seen better decades. Zenari war stock, third generation, combat conditioned. Bites. Bites hard. Sold as is. No refunds, no returns. And no, he raised a hand as someone jeered, no, you may not pet it. The crowd laughed. She didn't move. She'd learned that stillness was the only privacy left to her. Then a trader in a stained coat threw something at the cage. A scrap of gristle, maybe meant as a joke, maybe as a taunt. It never reached the floor. Her hand shot out between the bars and closed around his wrist, so fast the crowd's laughter died mid-breath. She didn't break it. She just held it, staring at him with an expression that made his face go the color of old paper, until she let go and retreated back into her corner. Silence. Then, from the back of the hall, near the exit no one used because it led nowhere good, a hand rose. Once. The auctioneer squinted. You sure, friend? Sold, the man said, before anyone could change their mind for him. His name was Dane Ashcroft, and if you'd looked at him twice, you'd have forgotten him by the door. Grease-stained jacket, unremarkable face, the kind of quiet that made people nervous without knowing why. He paid in station credit, no questions, no haggling, and waited while two guards fumbled the cage door open with the enthusiasm of men defusing a bomb. Move, one of them said, jabbing a shock probe through the bars. Come on, freak, we don't have all. She moved. Later, nobody in the hall could agree on exactly what they saw. Only that one guard was on the floor before the other finished his sentence, and the prod was suddenly in her hand, humming with borrowed voltage, and the whole room had gone very, very still. Dane didn't draw a weapon. He didn't call for security. He just looked at her, really looked, the way nobody had bothered to in longer than she could remember, and said 5 words. You don't have to run. She froze mid-motion, prods still crackling in her grip, muscles coiled like a spring about to snap. For 3 full seconds, nobody in that hall breathed. Then she dropped the weapon. It clattered against the deck plating, sparks dying in the dust. She stepped down from the platform on her own, no chains, no orders, and fell into step 3 paces behind him as he walked out. Nobody stopped her. Nobody said a word. Not until they were long gone, and even then, only in whispers. The station corridors cleared ahead of them like water parting around a stone. Merchants pulled their goods off display shelves. A mother yanked her son back by the collar and hissed a warning Dane pretended not to hear. Overhead cameras swiveled and tracked, recording, flagging, filing her existence away into some database that would never do her any good. His ship was nothing special. A hauler 2 decades past its warranty, hull scarred with the kind of damage that told stories nobody wanted to ask about. He pressed his palm to the loading ramp scanner and stepped aside. An invitation, not an order. She hesitated at the base of the ramp, eyes cutting toward the exits, calculating angles, calculating odds. He didn't push. He learned, somewhere, that pushing never worked on things that had spent their whole life being pushed. She climbed the ramp. The door sealed behind them with a hiss that sounded, for the first time in longer than she could remember, like safety instead of a trap. That night, he left the ship's master key on the floor beside his sleeping mat, deliberately, casually, within easy reach of the girl who sat awake in the shadows with a wrench gripped like a blade. One motion, and she could be gone. Engines, airlock, freedom, all a single grab away. She watched him sleep instead. All night. Weeks passed in the space between suspicion and something else. She caught him mid-fall when the gravity generators glitched during a repair, her hand snapping out with a speed that shouldn't have belonged to a body that thin. She hauled him clear of a collapsing cargo rack with her fingers hooked in his belt, breathing hard, face carefully blank, like admitting the effort would admit something more. Small things, quiet things. The kind that don't announce themselves until you look back and realize the distance between two mats on a cargo bay floor has been shrinking for a month. She told him her name on the 14th day. Vesh. One word, cracked from disuse, offered like a gift she wasn't sure she was allowed to give. Then the past caught up, the way it always does. The interceptor came out of hyperspace 40 clicks off their stern, matching velocity before Dane's outdated sensors even finished screaming a warning. 4 armored figures breached the airlock with military precision, and the one in front, face reconstructed, voice too smooth, the unmistakable polish of corporate retrieval, smiled the way people smile when they think they've already won. "There you are," he said, eyes on Vesh like she was a shipment finally recovered, not a person. "Failsafe still active. Give her back, or we take the ship apart around her." Dane stepped in front of her without hesitation. "Take me instead." The mercenary laughed, until Vesh moved past him anyway, faster than the eye could track, and the fight that followed left 2 men on the deck before anyone got off a clean shot. But the leader had 1 card left and he played it, a switch on his wrist display, and the skin at the base of Vesh's neck began to glow. A countdown, pulsing red beneath blue. 10, 9, 8. Dane didn't hesitate either. Microcutter in hand, he dropped to her side as she screamed at him not to touch it, and sliced through skin and scar tissue with a precision born of pure desperation, chasing a heartbeat he refused to lose. 3, 2. He ripped the device free and hurled it across the cabin a half-second before it detonated, the blast tearing through a storage locker instead of through her spine. When the smoke cleared, the interceptor was gone, and Vesh was staring up at him with an expression that had never belonged to a caged thing. Something raw, something almost like disbelief that anyone would bleed for her on purpose. "Why?" she asked, voice barely a whisper. "Did you buy me at all?" Dane looked at her for a long moment before answering, the truth simpler than either of them expected. "Everyone deserves a choice," he said. "You didn't have one. Now you do." She didn't run. She never had. Not really. Not since that first night with the key on the floor and a whole ship's worth of freedom within reach. She'd already made her choice. She was just waiting for someone to ask.